Okay, so what are the 5 risks that a retiree faces? Okay, so the first risk is that they will face longevity risk. So when we are younger, we are afraid of us dying too young, hence not leaving enough behind for our loved ones. So but during our retirement, we are more afraid of us living too long and outliving our assets that we need for our retirement, and hence not having enough during our retirement. So that's risk number 1, longevity risk. Number 2 risk is inflation. Many of us are probably familiar with the concept of inflation. Okay, so inflation, what we are afraid of is the risk of us losing our purchasing power because of inflation. All right, so number 3, healthcare risk. So this is not so much the risk of us falling sick, but really this is the risk of us not being able to cope with large medical bills. Okay, so number 4, the number 4 risk is investment risk. Okay, so I will share a bit more on investment risk at my next slide. So, but for now, just know that during our retirement, we might still need to do some form of investments, so we will incur some investing risk. And the final risk is the overspending risk. So many people, it's quite common that at the start of their retirement, while they are still young, they are healthy, they have the time, they have the money, they want to do a lot of the things that they always wanted to do when they were younger, but didn't have the chance to. So because of that, what might happen is that they might tend to spend a bit too much at the start of their retirement phase, and then leaving insufficient funds during the later part of their retirement. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, I'll go into investment risk. So when we talk about investment risk, most of the time we think about volatility risk. So volatility risk is basically the market going up and down, and because we don't like this fluctuation or this volatility, we exit the market too early or at the wrong time. Well, that is indeed a risk. But during retirement, what we are more concerned of is the sequence of return risk. Okay, so let me show you this example to illustrate on what is sequence of returns risk. All right, so assuming there is this accumulator, all right, so he is now at 41 years old, and he has an investment capital of about 100,000 that he can invest. And there are 2 portfolios he can choose from, okay, portfolio A and portfolio B. So if you have taken that 100,000 and invested into portfolio A, so his experience would have been like this, whereby at the first few years of his investment period, it would have been very negative returns, okay, a mix of returns in between, and ending with very positive returns. Okay, so on average, right, the annual return will work out to about 8%, and that translates to an amount that is about 691,000 growing from that 100K that he has put in. Okay, so but instead, let's say if today he has put into that portfolio B, so portfolio B would have gotten a very different experience, whereby at the start of the investment period, there's very positive returns, okay, again, mix of returns in between, and ending with negative returns towards the end. Okay, so you realize something very interesting over here. So if the annual return, actually, if it all ends up at 8% average annual return, the end result or the end amount is actually the same, okay? So again, let me just repeat. So as long as you have 8% annual return, the end result is really the same. Okay, so this is for an accumulator. This is for an accumulator. So, but the same cannot be said for a retiree. Okay, so assuming same person retiree. Okay, so while now he has his 100K has grown to 691,000 at 65 years old, and he's 66 years old now, and he wants to retire. Okay, so during his retirement, what he wants to do is that he wants to withdraw 5% annually from his portfolio, and he wants this amount to be inflation adjusted. Because now he's retired, he wants to live off this portfolio for his retirement expenses. Okay, so again, let's say if you put the 691,000 into the same portfolio A and portfolio B, how does the numbers look like? So again, just a quick refresher, portfolio A in the first few years, very negative returns, mix of returns in between, and then towards the end, very positive returns. Okay? So you realize that if you put in money into portfolio A, his money actually runs out at about 80 years old. No more money by 81 years old. Okay? So, but if he had invested the money into portfolio B instead, okay? So again, very positive returns at the start, mix of returns in between, and very negative returns towards the end. Okay? So you realize that he not only has enough to cover that 5% annual withdrawal, okay? He will end up in a state of abundance. He end up with about 2.4 million when he turns 90 years old. So why is that so? It's mainly because for portfolio A, at the start of his retirement, his portfolio has experienced a consecutive 3 years of negative returns. Okay, so but because he's retired now, he has to draw down from his investment portfolio. So it's a double whammy. So because your investment portfolio has already came down, okay, your investment portfolio has came down because of the market, but you still have to sell off your units to pay for your retirement expenses. So these units, if you have not sold it, it would have otherwise given you the return when the market has rebounded. Okay, so because of this double whammy, so this person's money ends up earlier if he had invested in portfolio A instead of portfolio B. Okay, so that is why it's very important for people in retirement to mitigate against the risk of sequence of return. Okay? All right, so this is the dilemma of a retiree. Okay? So with longevity, we are living longer, so we need more. And healthcare costs has been going up. And inflation doesn't help. And because of inflation, we will have to do some form of investment. But when we do investment to beat inflation, we have to take on additional investment risk. Okay? And how can we best effectively manage this risk as we become more risk averse during our retirement? Okay, just to compound matters, if we face this overspending risk as well, whereby we spend most of our assets during our retirement years, we end up with not enough assets for our later years. So then how can we resolve these different risks or mitigate these different risks?